Okay, hello everybody. How are you? How's everybody doing? Happy Thursday. I'm so glad to be here. If you are new to the group and you're watching this for the first time, if you are just jumping in on this series, this is our Thursday night autism parenting series. My name is Imari Ventura. I am a licensed speech and language pathologist and a school administrator. And this is the book that we've been reading. This week, March 21st, makes 3 weeks with this book. Today, we're going to review chapters 5 and 6. And I'm glad to be here. You guys, it has been a busy afternoon. Today, I posted it on my personal page. My son turned 3 years old. So, for any of you who have followed me or listened to me, I have two children. Full transparency, I am not an autism parent. I'm not a parent of a special needs child, but I am a professional, a practicing clinician, and I've had more than 13 years of experience with families. So that's where my background comes from. I'm also a mom, right? And so many of the experiences I can understand and share. And many things are new. So today was my son's third birthday. I made up some invitations and I sent them to neighbors and friends, and we had a birthday cake cutting. So our neighbors and their kids were just in my house. It's been a very busy afternoon, but we had a lot of fun, and I love families and I love community. So I was really glad to have everybody here. I'm just coming down off of that high. So it's once again nice to be here. Today we are going to be covering chapters 5 and 6. It is not too late to get this book, okay? I highly recommend it. I have been providing you all with some self-reflection questions, during our lives, for you to have and to read through and to mull over and to process after our lives. And so I am going to continue to do that. But you should also get the book. It's really good. It's really good. It's not possible for me to cover every single paragraph, right? But I cover a lot. But get the books, everybody. Read them. Take some personal self-care time and read the book, because you will get a lot of insight and encouragement knowing that you are not alone. There's other moms who experience the same thing, and there is help. There is help. There is help. Nobody gets left behind. When we all learn together, nobody is left behind. So I love this. Please get your copy and jump on in. Next week will be our last week, but we have some time, and you can more than certainly watch the replays and catch up. So let's get into it. Chapter 5 is entitled Improving Our Love Lives. And I think that is a very good title for this chapter. Many of us moms, right, and dads are married, and our children with special needs are the product of our marriage, right? We are families. And so I'm speaking tonight, with this chapter, right? Everybody's welcomed. But tonight for chapter 5, I'm speaking to married couples and committed partners, right? We recognize that all couples are not legally and officially married, but some are committed domestic partners. So this chapter is for us. And so this is interesting. This chapter talks a lot about sex, a lot about intimacy between husband and wife. Susan is not shy. She does not hold back in sharing anything about her romantic relationship with her husband. And I think that that's really empowering for her and for the reader, right? Because once again, nobody feels like their situation is unique or that they're left out. We can really relate. So Susan begins, right? And there's some research to back what she is saying. She says that she gets some research to support the finding that with couples who have autism in the family, um, intimacy and sex is a big problem. It's there's a lack of it, and that when a child in the family has autism, the sex life can really disappear. It can shrink and even sometimes go away. Now, there's a lot of studies to show us that when a couple is single, right? When a couple is just starting, newly married people, newly living together couple has gotten together. There are a lot of flames, a lot of passion. It's really hot, a lot of sex. When children come into the mix, when children then are produced as part of that couple, the amount of sex and intimacy can decrease, right? We see that in couples with special needs children and without. And so there's more research and understanding around the fact that when a child has special needs and like autism, there are so many issues that present themselves, right? And challenges, and a lot of it is unpredictable and just crops up again and again and again. And so it's no surprise to anyone that couples with autism in the family, couples with autistic children, really show decreased sex and intimacy in their relationship. There's one therapist or researcher, clinical psychologist, who says that when autistic moms come to her for therapy, right, for psychotherapy, to talk about their issues, they only talk about their kids, and they only talk about their focus is not on themselves. It's on their children and the support and the validation that they need as special needs moms. When the psychologist asks them about their sex life, they kind of skid past that point. They skirt it. They don't really want to talk about it. And so overall, it's been shown that there's decreased marital satisfaction when children, typical or special needs, enter the family, but the frequency, intensity, and unpredictability of raising an autistic child really diminish and decrease the sex life of the parents. And so that's unfortunate, but it's a reality, right? And because we all know that intimacy, which is not always necessarily sex, but intimacy is very important. It's the connectedness, it's the bond between two people that makes their time, their interactions really unique and special for that couple. And so we really see that minimizing when children come into the mix, but even more so and even harder to get back when there's a special needs child in the family. So if that's happening for you, if that's happening to you, do not think that it is strange. Do not feel embarrassed because of a lack of intimacy. Sometimes as women, we can feel embarrassed because there's a lack of intimacy in our relationship. We could think that it's us, that we did something wrong, or that we dropped the ball at some point for there to be less intimacy in the relationship. But I just want to make it clear that this is happening across the board, okay? Special needs and typically developing children, both types of couples are experiencing reduced intimacy and sex in the marriage. Okay, so please do know that. So that's a given, that's a fact. There's other issues that can weigh on the marriage also, right? We know if there's a spouse that is ill, if there's a disruption in finances, all of these are other factors. So please recognize that there are layers of things that can weigh a marriage down and really strain the sex and the intimacy. And with help, right? With therapy, with counselors, with a coach, you will be able to take off the layers and unpack the issues, right? To get to the core of the problem, fix it, and regain, enjoy again, all right? As we go through this book and as you relate and connect to Susan, please do keep in the forefront of your mind that life can be different. I'm glad that many of you are connecting with the narrative. You're connecting with Susan's testimonials, with her experiences that she's sharing. And I'm so thankful to Susan Senator for being transparent and honest in this book. And I'm so thankful for the families that allowed her into their homes and into their lives to talk about the realities of day-to-day raising a child with autism. And I want you to feel connected and have a bond with the author and the experiences that these women and men share. But it's not enough. The next step after that is to get help, right? Because like I said in my post last Friday, it's okay to feel grieved. It's okay to feel angry, but don't stay there. All right. We'll get into that a little bit more. Let's proceed. So I'll read number 2 of, I'm sorry, not number 2. I'll read number 3 of my reflection questions that you guys will see in the chat. So Susan makes it clear that intimacy and sex are 2 different things. Intimacy is the actions and events that lead to connectedness, whereas sex is the physical action of bonding. Would you rather prioritize intimacy or sex in your relationship? And so I think that's really important because there is a subchapter within 5 that talks about flaming the fire, right? And it really refers to all the things that lead up to sex and how that's really important. Susan talks a lot about her interactions with Ned. She talks about how they really had to work very hard to create a sex life because they were friends for a long time. And it was hard to get out of the friend zone with each other and see each other, recognize each other in a sensual way. And how raising Nat was very difficult and tiring. And at the end of the day, neither of them were in the mood to have sex. But she would, during the days, find herself daydreaming about her husband. And that was very healthy and helpful in having her to develop intimacy, right? And be excited to see him. That was a really good one. I like that one. So everybody has to ponder on what makes their relationship, what will increase their intimacy. Everybody has to think about that, and every couple has to find what excites them and what really brings intimacy, right, between them. Also, I really like how some of the families that she interviewed spoke about that it was a matter of time. They had more than one child. They had their child on the spectrum. They had their other kids who were typical, and there were so many activities and so many things to do that it was hard to get a moment to engage in physical intimacy together. And so they have to plan, right? So is that something that you need to do with your spouse or your committed partner? Is it important for you to plan times when intimacy and sex could be engaged in? And so I also enjoyed how she interviewed men, right? Because for much of the book up until chapter 5, she interviews moms. And so it's nice to see how she interviews men and a lot of them felt the same way, that they were tired at the end of the day, and they just were, you know, found it difficult to engage in sex and intimacy with their wives. I thought that that was really good. Um, she she talks about when they went to a Chinese restaurant with Nat, right? So the other two boys were doing something else. Um, Ned, Susan's husband, and Susan and Nat went out for dinner, and they like to tell jokes to each other. They like to look at each other in the eyes. They like to eat off of each other's plates, and those were all moments for intimacy and connection. And those are things that they did right in front of Nat. They didn't have to hide it. It wasn't something that was not child appropriate, but it was a way to enjoy each other and have fun and stay connected, right? She also talks about the bubble, and so the bubble is important because she said it was in moments that she was really grieved and really sad, she would sit down by herself and process her emotions. And from time to time, Ned, her husband, would see her sitting there processing her emotions, and he would sit alongside her, wrap his arm around her, and caress her, right? And sort of process the feelings with her. And so that is absolutely intimacy, and that's an opportunity to I don't want to say struggle together, but to relate to one another over the same cause. That builds intimacy. And so there's a lot of ways to do that. So I want you to think about, would you rather prioritize intimacy or sex in your relationship? I think ideally they would both be of high priority and meet each other and match. So think about it, which is important. And then after you think about that, express that to your spouse. Because at the end of the day, you guys are in this together. If you've had your child with your spouse and you're raising that spouse together, they experience the tantrums and the meltdowns just like you do. They're there for the accidents and for the doctor's appointments and the therapy chase, right? They're there for all of it with you. So that is your partner in this autism parenting journey. So talk about it with them, right? It is your partner and your best friend. And if you are married, right, you made a promise to be under covenant with this person. This is your parenting partner, your spouse, your best friend, and you're going through all things together. So when you think about that, really, what is more important, intimacy or sex? Express that to them. Express that to your committed partner or your spouse, and have a conversation, right? Okay. So the last part that I have to say about this chapter, which I really, really enjoyed this because I just don't think I don't think enough people are talking about it. I don't think, so enough people are talking about where does the sex life go after we have kids, how our sex life with our spouse changes after we have kids. Not only our bodies, but also the dynamic between you and your partner, the bond and the connectedness. I don't think that many people are talking about that, but it's a big issue, right? Because the marriage is the core of the family, and the children really are supported by the parents' marriage. So your relationship, your marriage, your sex life, right? Which is the thing that bonds you together, is of utmost importance in as it pertains to the family dynamic. And so it's even better, right? If you enjoy that, if you enjoy sex with your spouse, if it's intimate, if it's fun, if it's something that you look forward to, it's even the more better, because you are continuing to strengthen that family bond, that bond that unites the family. So one of her last points in chapter 5 is that autism parents should have complete and whole lives. They need to place their needs in the picture too. Okay? And so connectedness with our spouses, an enjoyable and complete sex life with our spouses is important. Because we have children, because we are worried about the right school, the right program, the right activities, the right extracurriculars, the right therapist, the right therapy strategies, the right method, the right pediatrician, all of these things, we want all of it. And in all of it, we get drowned. We get drowned and forgotten about. Our needs get drowned and forgotten about. But we can't do that. We can't. We can't do that. It's not healthy, and it's not it's not healthy, and it doesn't contribute to our happiness. It's not going to give us a life of joy, right? We're not in a position that we can 100% completely focus on ourselves, but we have to prioritize some of our needs. And so if we remember, the subtitle for this book is Creating a Balanced and Happy Life While Raising a Child with Autism. A big part of balance is managing the priorities of your child and yourself, right? And when I say yourself, that means those are the things outside of your child, your spouse, your needs, your care, your health, your sex life. Excuse me, my book fell. So please do that. My very last question about chapter 5 is, does sharing the difficulties of raising a child with autism with your spouse spark intimacy between you both? And so that relates back to my question. Since you are in the same situation together, do you and your spouse find intimacy out of that? Maybe, right? It could also be the dynamic that one spouse really does more than the other. One parent does a lot more. One parent schedules all the therapies, takes the child to all the therapies, follows up with the therapist, is working with the child extra at home, is left with the child to tend to meltdowns and tantrums. So raising a child with another person might not necessarily bond you. There can certainly be instances in which it does not bond the couple. It can be really a source of frustration and contention between the couple. So I recognize, we recognize the many different dynamics that could occur. But I want you to think about this question and really process it and think about how does autism affect the dynamic between you and your spouse as it relates to sex and intimacy. Okay, so I hope somebody enjoyed that. And I hope that it resonated with somebody who's watching this. Very good. So chapter 6, moving beyond you and me against the world. And so when I read this title of this chapter for the very first time, I have to admit, I didn't want to go any further because I can be a very independent person, and this is a very independent statement. You and me against the world. But this is not a healthy way to operate. That's not the way it works, right? We all need help. We're all a village. And so the very subtitle in this is Getting Help from Others. Okay, moving beyond you and me against the world. Getting help from others. If you're a mom of typically developing kids or kids on the spectrum, you know it takes a village. So I was so I'm so thankful for my neighbors, and I was so inclined to invite them to my house this afternoon for fried chicken and potato salad and cake, um, because it takes a village and because they help me with my kids. Right? Nobody can do this alone. To really do it in a complete way, you need help. Okay, and so that's why we are moving beyond you and me against the world. As uncomfortable as that may sound, we've got to move beyond you and me against the world. It's not just you and your child. Okay, it's really not even just you and your spouse, right? Because if you don't get help, if you don't get help, that some things can strain the marriage, right? Married people need time away, time together, a date night, time to go out, have a slice of pizza, go to watch a movie, right? They need help, they need a babysitter, they need family members. So we're moving beyond you and me against the world, and we're getting help. We're opening our arms, we're extending ourselves, opening up to receive help from other people. Okay, and so I thought that this was a really, really good chapter. She was very candid in this. Susan says, now I realize that grief and misery were not actually imposed on me by Nat, by autism, or by the other women, but by my own unresolved feelings and by how I perceived things. And about how I perceived things, her thoughts. To me, autism meant that Nat was no longer the Nat I had known or imagined him to be. So we spoke a couple of chapters ago about maternal grief, in a study that autism moms really may struggle through the highest levels of maternal grief. And one reason is because there's grief about not having the baby that you wanted to. Okay. So in question 1 of our self-reflection questions, I say disappointment is the result of unmet expectations. Think about that. Disappointment is the result of unmet expectations, right? When we don't get what we expected to, we get disappointed. Susan explains that her grief stemmed from the fact that Nat was no longer the Nat I had known or imagined him to be. So what my charge is for you is to list your expectations for your autistic child. List your expectations. List your expectations. Let them out. Do you expect them to be independent adults? Do you expect them to be discharged from therapy, from ABA therapy, or from occupational therapy? Do you expect them to behave with no tantrums or meltdowns in the supermarket? Do you expect them to do certain things? It's important. Now, in light of knowing that expectations that are unmet result in disappointment, what do you think you should do with all of those expectations? Go no further, but I want you to list your expectations for your autistic child. I think it's important to do that because we are uprooting some of the reasons, some of the things that allow for grief to develop. Some of our unmet expectations will be revealed when we list our expectations. We can get to the root of the grief. Okay. And so the second question that I wrote is that many autism parents express the need for compassion. And I understand that so much. Many autism parents express the need for compassion, just some love and understanding. Um, she says, that one of the moms that Susan interviews says, I want people to assume that I'm doing the best I can, the best anyone can, and that sometimes I'm just trying to make it through the event. Right? And so don't so many don't so many of us want validation. We just want to be told you're doing a great job. We want to be told you're making the right decisions. We want to be told, I see you doing your best and working your hardest. Right? So many of us want validation in a loving way. We want compassion. And so, what is enough when you don't get the compassion that you want? What is an affirming thought that you can tell yourself? Because it's not that the validation will will make us do what we need to do, right? Because we all do what we need to do. We know that we need to schedule therapy. We know that we need to go to IEP meetings. We know that we need to review. We need to sign up for certain things. We need to prepare for summer. We need to contact the psychologist about a 12-month program. We have a list of to-do items. We know we have that. We know. And so if somebody pats us on the back and says you're doing a great job, that's not going to make us stop doing it, and that's not going to make us start doing it. We do it because we have to. But isn't it so nice when you can get some compassion, somebody who understands you, when you can be understood, and somebody can give you some kind words and reassurance that you're doing a good job, that you're such a good mom. And when they don't, it's hard. It's hard. So other people might not show up for you, but how can you show up for yourself? What is an affirming thought? A positive thought that you can tell yourself that is compassionate and validating and affirming. What are those words you can tell yourself when you don't get the compassion that you've been looking for? What could that be? I'm doing a great job. I'm doing the best that I can, day by day. I'm taking it one day at a time. My kids are making progress. We are moving forward. I'm doing everything I need to do. These are affirming words that can help you to push you through. Because like I said, no, with the compassion or without it, we're still going to continue to do what we have to do. And we're still going to get it done. But with compassion, we can move through our day differently, right? Some of these tasks wouldn't be met with difficulty, wouldn't be met with so much difficulty, right? So it makes a difference on our psychology and on in our soul when we receive compassion that we want. So think about what is the affirming thought that you're going to tell yourself when you don't receive compassion and when you want it. Okay. So question 3. I hope that this is really helping somebody. You and me against the world. Now, when I read this particular quote that I'm about to read, or the reference to it, now I understand why the chapter is called You and Me Against the World, because this sums it all up. This sums it all up. Okay. I'll read the whole excerpt from the book. So, Susan says, unfortunately, it's a common experience for most autism parents at one time or another to feel humiliated by strangers. Or if it is not humiliation, then we might experience just plain lack of understanding. Right? So if your child just sets off in the supermarket, just melts down, just has the worst tantrum that week, people don't understand, right? If you are in a semi-quiet place and your child just starts, right, and is triggered and is having a tantrum, and you pick up all their stuff and leave, nobody really understands. If you drive an extra 5 blocks to find a drive-through because taking your kids out of the car to just to get coffee or just to get something quick to eat is so difficult. People don't understand how much work that is with your kids. So you go an extra mile out of the way because you know there's a Dunkin' Donuts, there's a Dunkin' 5 miles that has a drive-through, and you go there because it's just going to be more convenient. People don't understand that, right? So that's lack of understanding. Have you ever felt humiliated by strangers? Right? So maybe and this was the example in the book. A lady had whispered to her kids something about Nat, just because she was giving them a reason. The stranger was just giving them a reason, and it was something ridiculous, and it made Susan feel really humiliated. Have you ever felt humiliated by strangers? It's a question. List the emotions that you felt when your child had a meltdown and no one was around to help. Those are two items, two responses in one question. Have you ever felt humiliated by a stranger? Think about that. Process it. Maybe you were in a clothing store or a mall, and you overheard somebody whisper about, oh, those type of kids. They whispered something like that to somebody else, and then everybody's eyes were looking on you. So have you ever felt humiliated by strangers, people you didn't even know, but you were out in public and they said something silly about your child's situation, about your child's diagnosis, and they just made you feel what? And then list your emotions. List the emotions that you felt when your child had a meltdown and there was nothing you could do about it but wait it out, and no one was around to help. Was it at the playground? Was it at the pediatrician? Was it at a restaurant? Was no one around to help because you just needed to get out and have a moment by yourself and you took your child with you? Let's unpack. Write it out. Okay. Question 4, last question. So this question is really hopeful, and I like it a lot. Susan writes about lifelines towards the end of chapter 6. She says that lifelines are extremely important. Lifelines are the people who get it. As many autism parents say, you can leave your kid with a lifetime for a period of time, an hour, a weekend, it can vary, and you don't have to worry about it. These are the folks who let us escape and rejuvenate. Lifelines help our children too, because they provide them with bonding experiences beyond mom and dad, and help them to develop more independence. And then she goes on to talk about how between her and Ned, their lifelines are their extended family, and she likes for Nat to go to his grandparents. Let me tell you, grandparents are gold. I really have a lot of respect and reverence for older people, so I enjoy that. But the research also shows that when children grow up with grandparents and with pets, they grow up with a lot of compassion. Okay? So, my question to you is, do you have a lifeline? Do you have a lifeline? Could be your extended family, right? So that would be your mom, your dad, your sister, your siblings, um, and then it could go even further. Your cousin, depends where you live, who But do you have a lifeline? Could be your in-laws. They might help you to raise your child, or they might be a lifeline. And then unfortunately, sometimes those exact people that I've mentioned are not a lifeline. For some people, in some circumstances, those people are not a lifeline. They are not who you can trust and leave your child with. So I want you to think about who is your lifeline, and please make a list of your lifelines. Like the people who you can really, really count on. Even if you have to travel, even if you have to travel a couple towns, or even another state. Who is your lifeline? Who you know is serious, who is a committed friend to you, and is safe for your child, who gets it, who understands. Okay? I want you to write out your lifelines, go a step further, and plan your child's next visit to see one of these people so that you can have a break. Okay? Write out your lifelines, write those people down, right? Just like, and I'm not saying it's the same, but when, for example, when you every year sometimes, or when you enroll your child in a new school or a new camp or whatever, we always have to write down the emergency contact list, right? You write down those people, the emergency contact. In the same fashion, you're going to write down your lifelines, your lifeline contacts. And then you're going to plan your child's next visit. So if your sister is a lifeline for you, she has the time, the energy, the patience to take your child, and she's done it before, and you trust her, write her down, and then look at your calendar and say, Nat, just gonna use that name, has spring break in April. I want Nat to go visit my sister on this weekend. Okay? So plan, when is your child's next visit to see your lifeline so that you can get a break? And then go a step further. Give those people a call to confirm your plans. Right? So when you've already decided, and that person has been established as a lifeline in your life, you're gonna go in your calendar, schedule them to watch your child, to see them, and then you're going to write it down in your calendar. After that, you're going to give that a call your whoever, in this example, your sister, call them up, and then say, hey, it's so nice to talk to you. I was thinking about how last time you saw Nat, you guys had a lovely time. You do so well with him. You're always so sweet, and I'm so thankful that you're so patient. He would love to see you. We would love to see you. Would you mind spending some time with Nat on the weekend of April 20th, that Saturday? What do you think? Are you busy? Okay? Write out your lifelines. Plan a time when your child's going to visit them. Give those people a call to confirm your plans. See if they say yes. Okay. So, those are the end of my questions. That is the end of chapter 5 and 6. I hope that you've enjoyed this as much as I have. I have provided you with solid, actionable things to do to get started, right? As you continue to walk through this autism parenting journey. Um, and I really hope that you like it. So I don't know if most of you have seen, but I came out with a very exciting announcement last Friday, March 15th, which is that in addition to speech therapy and speech and language evaluations, my private practice is now providing special needs parent coaching. Okay? I am so excited about this. I just feel the call to do it. And I feel charged, and I am so excited. So, in the same way that I have given you action items to do for during this live for these questions, we're going to be doing this during our coaching calls for those who sign up to work with me. I will be doing it on a more individualized basis, right? So I'm working with the chapters that are in our book, and I'm speaking to you all generally, very broadly. But when you sign up for a coaching call with me, your action items, your feedback will be more tailored and more specific for your situations. And so I'm really excited to work with the autism moms and dads who are out there who need help, who need the tools, who feel grieved, who feel angry, who feel upset, and who are sitting in their emotions and just cannot understand life to be any different than it is, who are unable to establish the balance between their child's full life and all the necessities of their special needs child with their own life and all of the things that they need as a man or woman, as an individual. So this is just to give you an example. Write out your lifelines, schedule when you're going to see them, when your child's going to spend time with them. Give those people a call. Those are examples. That's a small example of the type of work we're going to do together, right? So that you can have balance once again in your life. All right. From mind shifts to milestones, redefining special needs parenting with joy. Redefining special needs parenting with joy. You guys, there is joy in the entire walk. There is joy in spending time with our kids, in being immersed in their needs, and living out this day to day with them. But if we put ourselves and spend all of our time with our kids and in everything they need, we lose ourselves. So there is a balance that has to be established in order for us to really live out our entire lives. Do you want the most from life? Do you? Because your life, mom, your life, dad, is not defined by your child with special needs. That is an opportunity to grow in your child. And the journey that you are walking with, the circumstance that you've been presented with is, like I've said before, it's a high calling. It's not for the faint of heart. It is a high calling, and you have been specially picked to raise this child, right? Now, they have special needs. They have special accommodations that require more from you than a parent of a typically developing child. And you should be involved in that. And you should be precise, and you should be picky, and you should be informed and empowered in every step of that process with your child. But that's not where your life begins or ends. You have a special calling on your life. You have wants and needs and desires that have to be met. Right? And so when we bring our wants and needs and desires back into the picture, and we parse through them and recognize which are the most important ones, What are my most important needs? What are my most important desires? What are my most important wants? And we prioritize them, and we put them into, we integrate them into our life with our special needs child. We can redefine joy. We can find and redefine joy. You just need a coach to do that for you, to get you there, to help you process your emotions, come out of your emotions, because you cannot live in states of emotions. The emotion is triggered as a result of what has happened, or what we've perceived, or what we've been presented with. And so we should recognize those emotions, feel them, engage with them, acknowledge them, but we cannot stay in them. We cannot stay in them. We cannot stay in our emotions. That will cloud our vision, and that will not allow us to move through life in a way that allows us to get the most of it. That will not allow us to do our best parenting and to recognize the nuances and changes of our child. So I am so glad to be here. I'm really enjoying this book. It's amazing. It's not too late to get your copies. There's also other thing in the book that I want to point out. Through these chapters, if you're reading a physical copy, you'll see that there's some gray boxes, like this one. This is another one, right? It starts over here, and then it continues over here, right? So there are these gray boxes throughout. And those are, these boxes have some really great suggestions. So I do, and like there's some websites that are there to help you. There's just some really good content in the gray boxes. So I wanted to point that out for anybody who's reading it with me. It has been a wonderful night. I've had a lot of fun. I have to admit, I am ready to rest. It is almost 9:30. We've had a really good time. I will put the questions, the self-reflection in the chat. Once again, please, I want you to think about the questions, process them. If you need help and support, reach out to me. You can reach out to me privately in the group. You can reach out to me in my Facebook, or you can email me. But please, reach out. I've had a really good time. This has been wonderful. What's coming up? So next week I'll be releasing our April at a glance. So you'll all be able to see what's happening in April. And there'll be new spring webinars, and I think that everybody's going to like them. So I'm excited to release everything that's coming down the pike. And it's going to be good. So everybody, have a wonderful night. Tomorrow's Friday. We're almost at the weekend. Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And I will see you next week for chapters 7 and 8. That'll be our last chapters of our book. And I'm excited to see you here. It's not too late to get your copy. Chapter 7 and chapter 8. Email me if you have any questions, and I will see you later. Take care, everybody, and have a good night.